this moment, face into the wind. Northern places we may meet again.
I think about this a lot, even though now I study galaxies far away, stars in galaxies that are in billions of years ago. I think it's still for me the best place in the whole universe is Earth. I don't want to live anywhere else, and I love Earth so much, and it's all coming from that expedition, this just feeling of loving our planet and every bit of its nature was something that I gained after our Antarctica expedition.
That's Irene Shivaei. She was on the SOI 2007 Antarctic Expedition as an 18-year-old. Irene is an astrophysicist now who literally studies stardust, the formation and evolution of distant galaxies, focusing on their dust, gas, and star formation properties. Born and raised in Tehran, Iran, she earned her PhD in physics from UC Riverside and has held prestigious research positions, including the NASA Hubble Fellowship. Irene currently leads the European Research Council-funded Distant Dust Project at the Center of Astrobiology in Madrid, Spain. Active in educational outreach, she helped found the STEM mentorship program Mesquite and the Persian language astronomy site Staryad. Hi, I'm Geoff Green, the founder and expedition leader of Students on Ice. In 1999, an idea was born. Imagine if we could bring youth at the beginning of their lives on educational expeditions to the polar regions, two cornerstones of the global ecosystem and windows to the world, and how that inspiring experience might shape their perspectives and even their futures.
Good morning, Students on Ice. It's going to be a great day.
In December of 2000, we made our maiden ship voyage, bringing a group of youth on a journey to Antarctica. An incredible journey of discovery, connection, and learning in what we would later call the greatest classroom on Earth. It's hard to believe, but Students on Ice is now in its 25th year. Since that first expedition, we've taken more than 4,000 students to the Arctic and the Antarctic, together with teams of educators, elders, artists, researchers, and leaders from over 55 countries. Our mission to connect youth to nature, culture, environmental leadership and stewardship, and even to themselves has remained steady in this changing world. We now have a global network of incredible alumni doing incredible things. This podcast is part of a year-long celebration of Students on Ice, a chance to reflect on the experiences, the connections, and impacts through conversations with the people who were there, getting their stories in their own words. I'm so happy and thrilled to welcome Irene Shivaei as our guest today on the greatest classroom on Earth. Hello, Irene.
Hi, Jeff. Hello to you and to all the listeners. It's really a pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me.
It's a great pleasure to have you. Thanks so much. Boy, we haven't spoken in a while, I think since the pandemic. So, boy, 6 or 7 years ago now. And you've gone places ever since then, but I can't wait to hear more about your journey.
Yeah, it's been a while and lots of things has happened since the Antarctic trip and also since the last time we talked, which was during the pandemic. Excited to tell you all about it.
I can't wait. Irene, let's go back a little bit. You're in Madrid, Spain right now, but you grew up in Tehran, in Iran. What was it like growing up in Tehran, and what were you like as a kid?
I really loved it. I grew up, yes, as you said, in Tehran. It's a very big city, very crowded, which means at the same time you have access to so many different opportunities. Whatever you want to do, you can find some of its best resources in there. At the same time, I was surrounded by family. I have lots of cousins. We have a relatively large family, aunts and uncles and cousins, and growing up with them was really fun. And I was in Iran until the end of my undergrad years. So after the school years, the K through 12 school years, I went to university there, to the physics program in University of Tehran. And actually, before that, in high school, was when I started getting into astronomy and thinking that might be what I want to do in the future. So I was very fortunate that we had an educational observatory in the middle of this crowded city of Tehran with all the light pollution and everything. But there is this little observatory called Zafaraniye is its name. And one day I was in the middle of school, I saw this ad. It was actually summer classes. So it was at the end of the school year, and I saw this ad for these astronomy summer classes. And around that time, it was the time that I was thinking, okay, what do I want to do in the future? And I was thinking, I either want to study stars, so go in the deep sky, or I want to study the ocean, go deep in the ocean. This was my two passions for some reason. And it just happened that that summer, I saw this ad for these summer classes for astronomy, and I went there.
How old were you?
I was 11, 12 years old. So that summer started. I remember every single moment of it. The classes, the first classes, I was very shy. Just generally, I was a very shy, maybe like an introvert person. So I remember I went to the class and I sat at the very back row. But I remember every single moment of that class and how excited I was after the class. And I was very lucky to have really good teachers. They were very passionate about astronomy and generally about science, which got me really motivated about pursuing astrophysics. So after that, in high school in Iran, we have to choose our general field, whether it's biology or humanities or math and physics. So I knew that I want to do physics for sure and probably astronomy. So I went to physics, and then for my undergrad, I was sure that I want to do astronomy. So I chose physics as my major in undergrad. And all of these years, I built this community of scientists and astronomers and educators around me in Iran, and it was very fruitful and very enjoyable days.
Wow, so you were really young when you caught the passion and the bug for astronomy. And it's a great example of how yeah, when you get inspired at a young age, it can take you anywhere. So when you came on Students on Ice, you had just finished high school and it was before university. Is that accurate?
Yes, that's accurate. And it's actually the story of how I got there is very much related to the story of me in astronomy and going to
Huh.
those astronomy classes.
Really? So how did you hear about Students on Ice then?
In these classes, in these astronomy classes, I had a couple of very good teachers. And one of them was Babak Tafreshi, who is now a renowned astrophotographer. And at that time, he was teaching us astronomy. And he just had this trip to Antarctica for observing a solar eclipse. So I was really into I knew by heart every single photo that I saw from that trip. So it was for solar eclipse, was just generally the nature of Antarctica was so fascinating. And the fact that someone from Iran went there was amazing for me. Through this group of teachers, I heard about this opportunity that there is an expedition for students to go to Antarctica called Student on Ice. And that year, there was someone called Anusha Ansari, the first Iranian woman who went to space as a private astronaut. And she wanted to fund one student from Iran to go to this educational exploration with the Student on the Ice group to Antarctica. So my teachers, the astronomy teachers, they told us about this opportunity, and whoever wanted could apply. So we had to write a motivation letter, and then there was an interview, and I went through all of that. And when I was selected, I just could not believe it.
I remember that really well, actually. I was so excited to have a student from Iran participating. And I had met Anusha Ansari in Antarctica. She was on an expedition I'd been leading, must have been maybe 2005 or 6. And I told her about Students on Ice, and she immediately said, we have to get some kids from Iran to go. And that's what led to her supporting your scholarship. Isn't that amazing how the world works that way? And of course, she's an incredible human being, isn't she, in so many ways? The things that she's
She's an
done.
amazing character. Yes. She is really an incredible person.
I know she was extremely proud of you going to Antarctica and what you've done since. Anusha has been a huge supporter and champion of Students on Ice ever since your first trip. I think that you were a great ambassador for Iranian youth to be part of our program. So thank you for that. What are your memories that stand out from going on that journey to Antarctica?
Oh wow, many very good memories. Sometimes when you think back, you have these pictures of your memories are like pictures, and I have many of those from that trip. But some of the top ones for me are the first time that I saw we went to these little day trips with the boats, and the first time that I saw the icebergs from close, and that was just that feeling is so precious for me. And getting so close to nature that is pure and untouched, and how grand these were, and all those colors, it was really magical. That's one of them.
You're bringing back a memory for me, which was, I think it was in a Zodiac on one of those trips. I believe you were with Fritz in a Zodiac, Fritz Kerner. And he came back, like Fritz, he has seen a lot of ice. He's a glaciologist, but he was so inspired by you and the impact those icebergs had on you. I remember him telling me all about that.
Yes, I remember that. And I was also surprised by because I was just being myself. I was like completely in my own zone, in my own bubble. And yeah, I remember that conversation of Fritz. And if you remember, we had a musician in that trip. By the end of the expedition, he had a collection of songs that he wrote based on his experience. And one of the songs was about my encounter with icebergs, the first time that I saw the icebergs.
Thrill to my heart when I hear your laughter. Thrill to my heart when I see you smile.
I think that's the song that is on the YouTube video of our 2007 expedition.
I'm going to say it was probably Ian Tamblyn. Does that ring a bell?
Yes, yes, yes.
Okay.
Absolutely.
The great Ian Tamblyn. We're going to dig that song up and put it on this podcast for everybody to hear, because that's totally forgot about that. You must have said something, because for Fritz to get emotional about an iceberg, he loved ice, but amazing. And it inspired a song. How about that? So that's one of the memories. What are some of the other things that stand out?
So other than other snapshots of beautiful nature, like the Paradise Bay, I also remember was really mesmerizing for me. And there's another memory actually before I move away from the nature part. The last day of the expedition in the south, we went with the ship into an iceberg, and then we all got off the ship, walked on the iceberg. First of all, for me, just walking on an iceberg was just such a strange and amazing experience. But then you told all of us to lie down or sit down, however we are comfortable, and then close our eyes. And I remember this lying on the iceberg under blue sky. That day was completely sunny, under the sunshine, the blue sky, and those few moments of complete silence. It was really enriching.
I'm so glad you remember that. I remember that day too. And we put the ship right into the ice, and I think we like walked right onto the ice. Yeah, that
Yes.
was that was one of those magic days. That's so great. You remember that. And
Yes.
as somebody who studies space, in a way, it's like going to another planet, isn't it? When you're in a place like Antarctica on floating ice.
Yeah, it's actually interesting that you say that. For me, that whole trip made me love Earth a lot more than before. And I think about this a lot, even though now I study galaxies far away, stars in galaxies that are in billions of years ago. I think it's still for me the best place in the whole universe is Earth. I don't want to live anywhere else. And I love Earth so much. And it's all coming from that expedition. This just feeling of mm, loving our planet and every bit of its nature. was something that I gained after our Antarctica expedition.
It's so true. It's our home. It's the only one we have. And I'm curious. I'm going to jump ahead. I'm going to come back to the question I have for you because I'm curious how the work you do now in these other galaxies can help our planet Earth. So I'm going to come back to that. I'm planting that seed. But on that expedition, it's so many things, eh? The penguins, the ice, the beauty of Mother Nature, the power of Mother Nature. I can't remember if we had a rough Drake Passage crossing on that trip or not, but probably.
Yeah, it was relatively rough. What was interesting to me, I didn't get seasick once, and I never took pills during the whole trip.
Good.
And
Good
I
for
think I
you.
was just so excited. I was so excited the whole time that I think I was just enjoying it.
That's the way to do it. Au naturel. Yep. It's a rite of passage. And are there people that you
Yes.
really connected with and maybe even that you still keep in touch with?
Yes. So I want to first say, in general, another thing that was very memorable from that trip for me was the international community that was present on that ship. So I was coming from Iran. As a family with my parents, we had traveled before. So it wasn't my first time outside of Iran. I had seen other countries, but it was the first time actually living with people outside of my culture and country, different language, and definitely my I knew English and I could speak and understand it, but I wasn't too comfortable with it. So that whole experience of seeing people from different cultures with different languages, it was very interesting. I remember students from all over the world. There were a sister and brother from Dubai. There was a student from Japan, from Dominican Republic, multiple students from Portugal, and of course many students from the US and Canada. And I'm still in touch with some of my fellow explorers, some of the students from Portugal, from Dominican Republic. Actually, I saw two of the Portuguese students a few years ago in Lisbon. I went there and I sent them a message on Instagram and they were super excited. They came pick me up. We had a day trip to one of the villages near Lisbon. It was amazing.
That's so awesome to hear.
Yeah, I think that was a bond between students that I really cherished from that trip. At those ages, it was very, aside from seeing the nature and going to the poles, I think in those ages, interacting with other youth that are completely from a different culture is very important, shaping your character. And I'm very glad I had that opportunity.
I'm so glad that you took advantage of that opportunity too, because Antarctica is the only continent on planet Earth that's never had a war. Nobody owns it. It's governed essentially for peace and science and conservation through the Antarctic Treaty. So it's a great place to bring international youth together, isn't it? At the
Yes.
beginning of their life and make those kind of lasting connections. I was just in Portugal a couple of months ago and I bumped into the fellow who organized all of the Portuguese kids to come
Hmm.
on that journey in
Yes.
2007 because it was part of the International Polar Year. That was an official action of the IPY, as it's known, the International Polar Year. We did that for 2007 and 2008. So it was a pretty special expedition in so many respects. And believe it or not,
Yeah.
that's so long ago that we're now gearing up for the next International Polar Year in 2032. You might have to come back. You might have to come back as one of our staff on that journey.
That's amazing. Aside from the students, few other people that I'm still in touch with and I really admire them to this day. We had a few chaperones in the trip and two of them, Lilith Wyatt and Zoe Karen. I'm still in touch with them and yeah, really enjoy our conversations and seeing what they do now, and hopefully one day when I travel to Canada I can meet them again in person. And in addition to all of these people, just generally, I really enjoyed every single classroom that we had with the scientists. I remember Fred Roots for sure, Fritz Corner that you just mentioned him in my iceberg trip. We had an oceanographer, I remember, a biologist. We also had an astronaut. All of them had classes either in the classrooms or in the field. And I just want to say all of this together, all of these people made an impact on how was the experience of that expedition for me.
Isn't that convenient that you had an astronaut on your trip, knowing your love
Yes,
for
yes, that was, yeah.
for space, and of course, oh my goodness, just the fact that you were able to travel with Fred Roots. And I'm gonna give a big shout out to Zoe and Lilith as well. I'm sure they're gonna listen to this. Zoe was living in Norway until recently, played a big role in the Canadian government for a number of years, working a lot on climate change issues. And so she'll love to hear that you're thinking of her and that she was an inspiration for you. Oh, that's so amazing. And so for those of you who don't or who are not astrophysicists, that I'm going to guess that's most of us that are out there listening, describe the work you are doing and yeah, what's inspiring you these days?
I use data from some of the largest telescopes we have on Earth or in space to observe distant galaxies and understand how they have formed and how they evolved throughout cosmic time to become galaxies like Milky Way that we have today. So this was in very broad sense. What it means really is that we take images and spectra from these galaxies in different wavelengths and look at components of these galaxies. Particularly what my research is focused on is understanding gas and dust in between the stars in the galaxy. So these are clouds of dust and gas that the stars form from, and when they die they become the gas that is there again. So this cycle of star life, you might say, I studied this to understand why different galaxies are different and how they change over their lifetime, and from very early times to now, how they change and why they change the way we see them.
Wow. Most people might think the average day for Irene is spent looking through some gigantic telescope, but what does an average day or week look like? How do you do the work you do?
Yeah, unfortunately, we don't anymore observe behind the telescopes. I wish that was the case because that's how I got into astronomy, but with much smaller telescopes. But an average day for me is very much working behind my computer, coding, a lot of programming, a lot of data analysis and statistical work, and then hypothesizing different physical theories for galaxy evolution and comparing it with the data that we got from telescopes and thinking. I sometimes joke with my friends that today I sat down and thought. That was basically the day. That's research, I guess.
Yeah, that's, I think, what needs a lot of deep thinking, I'm sure. And are you doing that together? You must have a team there in Madrid, but are you working with a lot of international colleagues?
Yes, indeed. Our group is very international in the astrophysics department. But I'm also hiring multiple people, and right now we are a good sized group. I have PhD students that I work with, which is one of the most enjoyable things that I do actually during the day. So aside from doing my own research, we mentor PhD students for their PhD thesis on a research project. And it's really an amazing experience seeing them learn and learn how to form a question, how to look for the answer of that question in a scientific way. I really like that part of my job. And then there are postdocs in the department. They are very international from different countries. In Spain, now that I'm here, is mostly from Europe, but all across Europe.
So any students and ICE alumni listening out there today to this podcast can send their resumes directly to Irene. You might want to get your PhD first, but that's part of the beauty of the SOI alumni family is making these types of connections. So wouldn't that be something?
Definitely.
Now, you mentioned earlier you went from Tehran to eventually to California. So what happened that led you to leaving Tehran? And was that to pursue your education, or was that something more related to the geopolitics or the political situation at the time?
Mainly to pursue my education in astrophysics. I wanted, at that point, I knew that I want to build a career in astrophysics. And there aren't, particularly in observational astronomy, which means I want to use telescopes and get the data. It's different from theoretical work that you do simulations and that only needs your computer basically. And for observational astronomy, there weren't that many opportunities in Iran and not that much future to as a career. So that was the main motivation to go abroad.
And that led you to first to California.
Yes, I went to University of California in Riverside for my PhD. That was in physics, but with a thesis in astrophysics. And it was an amazing experience because as part of the University of California system, we had access to Keck telescopes. These are one of the largest optical telescopes on Earth. They're in Hawaii. And I was very fortunate to go for observing many days and nights to the big island of Hawaii, which is like paradise on Earth.
I bet.
But also meant I had access to very good data for my PhD thesis. So after my PhD in California, I went to University of Arizona in Tucson and to do a postdoc. And that's when I got postdoctoral fellowship, the NASA Hubble Fellowship. And I joined there the James Webb Space Telescope team. Probably everyone has heard about the James Webb Space Telescope. It's the largest telescope we have in space and a $10 billion project for years that was being built by NASA, European Space Agency, and Canadian Space Agency. And when I went to University of Arizona, I joined the instrument teams of the telescope. And that was, again, another very lucky opportunity that I could be integrated in these international teams. And after I was there for 6 years, so I became a research staff after my fellowship ended. And at the end of the 6 years, I came to Madrid, to Spain, in the astrobiology center. And now I'm here a researcher and still working a lot with the JWST data, along with other data from other telescopes through a grant that I got from a European Research Council, ERC, called Distant Dust, to study dust in distant galaxies.
That must be one of the coolest titles of a project I've ever heard, Distant Dust. Well, Irene, let me go back to that earlier question I started to ask you, which is, when we're thinking about our planet Earth, how is the work that you're doing in astrophysics connected to Earth and the future of our planet?
That's a very good question. And I guess I can think about it in different ways. In one way, for me, they're very connected because both of them get me much closer to nature, whether it's the nature in our planet or the sky above us. But in another way, just generally my experience from our trip, going to astronomy and doing research in astronomy, the way I see them connected in my story is through the spirit of exploration. This was something that I feel like it was always in me. I always had these questions and wanted to see more and learn more and explore more. And either looking at Earth or deep in the ocean or deep in the sky, this is the common denominator for me to better understand our world.
Do you feel that there's still enough support and investment? There's a lot of challenges for science these days and scientific research. Is that the case for the astrophysicists these days, or is there still significant international support?
I think in Europe there is very good support. I feel very happy actually these days that I'm here and I feel more stable in terms of science funding, particularly with the European Research Council. It's the probably the largest body of financial support for sciences in Europe, and it's substantial. It really gives you the freedom to establish yourself as an independent researcher, build your group, whether you need to build labs or you need to build a group, they provide the funding. It's very competitive, extremely competitive, but still it exists. And I think that's very good. But of course, science budget is compared to a lot of other budget for a lot of other things in all countries is very small. And I understand some reasons for it. What concerns me the most, though, is that when I study astronomy or dust in distant galaxies, it might sound abstract, but it's not just about studying dust and gas in distant galaxies. It's also about that critical thinking and logical thinking and teaching that to the younger generation is very important. And as much as budget is science is important for discoveries in pure science, I think it's also very important for the educational part of it.
Okay, so I have to ask this question. Do you think there's other life out there?
I don't see why not. There has to be. That's my answer.
Nice. I love it. Okay.
No, if you think about the probability of having life in another part of the universe, there has to be another life. The probability is not zero. There must be other rocky planets that could create life on them. How we can find that other life, that's a much more difficult question, and maybe on a longer time scale, we will get there.
Okay, great answer. Great answer. I think I think it's out there for sure. We can't be the only species in this incredible universe. So I read that you're doing some mentoring and working in the Persian language astronomy site of Staryab. One question is, are you potentially going to be the second Iranian woman to outer space after Anusha? Or maybe there's been some others, I'm not sure. But is that something on your bucket list?
Not on the top of my bucket list. The SOI expedition made me really love Earth. I'm happy being here. But maybe one day.
I think you should, but maybe you can come on another Students on Ice trip as a member of our team in the meantime. And just on going back to your childhood in Tehran and Iran, these are challenging times for Iran. I imagine you have family and many friends still there. Are you able to keep that connection? And I hope everybody's okay.
It's indeed very challenging times, very concerning, and very, very sad. I'm in touch with everyone in Iran. I have all my extended family and many friends from high school and university time in Iran. It's been very difficult to only hear the news of war, sanctions, everything, and not being able to do anything at the same time. It's very difficult. I think our world needs more peace and calm, and I really wish for that.
Yeah, that's so well said. We all wish for that. Let's hope that this craziness ends as soon as possible. And thinking of everybody, all of your friends and family.
Thank
You
you.
know what, related to that, yeah, absolutely. What brings you hope, Irene? And I guess hope in different senses, but not just for your home Iran, but I guess for the work that you do. What keeps you hopeful? What keeps you motivated and inspired?
I think new generation brings me hope. When I see the new generation, young people in Iran, and how they are at the forefront of fighting for their rights, for women rights, for human rights, it really makes me hopeful for the future. And by extension, in the world, I honestly am very optimistic about this current generation of young people getting in power and changing the world to a more peaceful future. When I see how bright they are, how independent they are, and how much they know exactly what they want, it gives me hope.
I could not have said it any better. Is when people ask me what I love most about the Students on Ice program is the cause for hope that youth bring. And that kind of keeps
Mm.
me doing what we're doing without question. It's endless. And the examples of all the great things, the hopeful things, the positive things that are out there that we don't hear in the news, I think they're greater than all the crazy nonsense that we do read about. So let's keep hopeful. Let's keep working and doing the amazing things that you're doing. And I want to thank all the people that helped to bring you and I together and to bring you to Students on Ice. Anusha, of course, if you're listening, that teacher, I think that you mentioned, the photographer, Bobat was his name?
Bobak.
Bobak. Yes, thank you, Bobak, for sharing that opportunity with youth. That's what it's all about, is making those connections and giving opportunities to youth near the beginning of their life, because look where it could lead, like it has led you. It's so great to see you, Irene, and thanks so much for joining our podcast today.
Thanks a lot, Geoff. Thanks for having me. It was really a pleasure to catch up with you and an honor to be on this podcast.
And thanks to all of you for listening. Thanks to the wonderful Sarah Harmer for our theme song, Lancaster Sound. And we're playing you out today with the song by Ian Tamblyn, inspired by that Zodiac trip with Irene and Fritz Kerner in Antarctica.
To my heart when I hear your laughter.
And if you enjoyed this podcast, please give us a review and rating where you listen, and share a link of this episode with friends and family far and wide. It's the best way to make sure this conversation and others reach as many people as possible. And please give us a follow on social media. To learn more about Students on Ice, go to studentsonice.com or soifoundation.org. Thanks so much for listening. Until next time, I'm Geoff Green.
Right to my soul. Thrill to my heart when I see you dancing. Thrill to my heart when I watch you spinning around. You can call it a dance, you can call it a chapter, but it moves me, man, right to my soul, right to my soul. Thrill to my heart, your eyes wide open, taking it in, breathe deep and be bold, 'cause it moves me, man, to see your passion over the moon, right to my soul, right to my soul. Thrill to my heart when I hear your laughter. Thrill to my heart when I see you smile. You can call this a dance, you call this a chapter, but it moves